Hey everybody, guess what? We have a special guest here, Joyce Meng, who's showed up on my MBTI channel, and now she's here. So, how's it going, Joyce?
Hey Leon, it's going great. Even better now that I'm talking to you.
So, can you tell us your here piece you want to talk about? And I'm also interested in learning about your life coaching insights. Can you tell me a bit about that?
Yes. So I am a life coach and I see myself as a helpful facilitator for people's soul development.
Hmm.
So some insights from coaching is I really like to get people to really figure out who they are at their core. I want them to figure out like who their true being is. True like and the ways that they've been being far or distant from that. Because I think when people are feeling sad or weird or depressed, it could be because they're not in alignment with who they like well, who they are at their core. So, in Myers-Briggs terms, if you're not really caring about your dominant function, a sign or a byproduct from that could be being depressed, So
Hmm.
a lot of sadness comes from betraying your natural alignment or betraying your own soul. And people don't notice it because there are little ways that the world kind of makes you desensitized to that. And
Yeah.
so my goal as a coach is to ask people meaningful questions
Hmm.
so that they can further and further gain more self-knowledge, to look at themselves, the areas of themselves they have left unexplored because of either shame or they didn't ask the question that they needed to get there. I'm kind of facilitating them gently to have more self-knowledge so that they can use that self-knowledge to love themselves more and to then love others more, because now their cup is full, they can like love others just as much. So it's kind of like, all controlling what you can control, and that is yourself. you know like what I like to do during my coaching is I want to like strip all superficial titles off of someone. Like, a lot of people identify with the job that they work at, or which is great, or their title at their home, or some sort of label that other people give them. And so they have all these labels, but I want to see how they're like without all these labels. What is them apart from what they're used to associating themselves, which is more of a persona rather than a person. So I want to strip away the persona to get to the person. I want to strip away the conditioning to get to the person, so that they can use their knowledge of who they really are to really point a direction in their life that is helpful rather than hurtful towards themselves.
Yes, yes, yes. And I sense that you could really sense when people are not within alignment, right?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Hmm.
because you'll see all of these residues when someone is out of alignment. You'll see a lot of byproducts from that. It's either they'll be lazy, procrastinating. I don't believe there's a true lazy person. It can
Hmm.
be out of a not knowing what aligns with you, so just not
Hmm.
being able to commit enough to want to do something fully.
Hmm.
So sometimes laziness can come from a lot of factors. So it's getting to the root of what that is. So there are a lot of, like I said, like byproducts, reactions to being out of alignment that people, they'll notice. A general burnout or a lack of energy, or even physical issues, like if you have a back issue or health issues or mental health issues, they can possibly come out of a misalignment with your true self.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
So when you're talking with people, you could sense this, and you could get the signs of that show when they're not really aligning with themselves, and you
Hmm.
help them to be able to get there.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like almost self-care to look for your true natural alignment, because
Hmm.
if you don't take care of that, you you'll feel neglected. You won't know why you're feeling neglected. You won't know why you're feeling a little off, but you'll never feel truly right if you
Hmm.
don't pay attention to yourself in some
Hmm.
fundamental ways. Yeah. Hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of spiritual trauma that can happen when you neglect looking back at yourself. I see like the whole world as a mirror for your soul. And because it's a mirror for your soul, everything outside you will show byproducts of the state of your soul.
Mhm.
So through hearing about a person and their life journey, you can hear about the state of their soul and
Mhm.
possibly how to help recuperate it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. Hmm. Can you bring us an example of of someone that may have been out of alignment and you able to see the signs of that?
Yeah. So I have a friend who's like a major people pleaser, and there are
Hmm.
moments of my life where I've been that as well.
Hmm.
And you can be out of alignment with yourself because you don't know what you need at that moment. You don't know how you are reacting to the situation because you're so busy looking externally and trying to make sure you're people pleasing correctly rather than looking if you should be people pleasing at all. So it's almost like questioning the fundamental reason for why you're doing things, and like,
Yes.
is this something you should be doing? Why
Hmm.
are you doing it? Is it a reason with integrity? And if it's
Hmm.
not, and to figure out how it's serving you too, like how is people pleasing serving you, and is it still serving you, or was it serving you in the beginning but now it's harming you? And if it's not helpful to your life, to gently thank it, so Mary Kondo, she talks about how to tidy up your life, how to basically order your home so you can order your mind. And I
Yes.
think
Hmm.
the same principles can be applied to any part of your life. So
Hmm.
if you have a history of people pleasing,
Hmm.
or you have any behavior that you might want to reevaluate, it's to thank it for being there because it had a purpose. The reason why you had that behavior in the beginning was because it had a purpose for being there.
Right.
So the only way to get rid of something is to love it, and then acknowledge it, and then that's the only way to get rid of it. You cannot push it away from existence. Whatever you
Yes.
resist persists, but if
Yes.
you acknowledge, it is knowledge.
And what I see that you're doing is that you are helping people to clarify themselves using uh, asking questions, getting them to see um, the reason behind them doing things, right? And I think the very important component that you mentioned about is like giving these aspects of ourselves that a sense that they're loved, and you do appreciate the role that they have played, right? And that's actually the way through. Instead of fighting our thoughts, is to love them in a way.
Yeah, yeah. It's almost to see everything you are made up of as well intentioned, even if it doesn't seem that way. And
Mhm.
so, if it is well intentioned, you have to treat it with that type of love back, because it's like, oh, you only meant to love me, except you accidentally hurt me. Well, the action, the result might have not been great, but your origin was fine. So I accept you, and I'm ready for the next phase of whatever this is. Yeah. But if you try to reject a part of yourself, you'll fail, because you're it was there for a reason, and now you're pretending like that reason doesn't exist, and in a way you are kind of abusing yourself. It's self-abuse to treat yourself like a part of yourself like it had no reason to be there. It's self-abuse to shame something that was natural in you. So the only way to fix that is to be nice to it and replace it with a healthier substitute. So
Yes.
it's like going like, I love you, maybe you could be a little bit modified in this way. And so adjusting, like acknowledging the original well-intentionedness of the basic belief that you had, or the basic that led to that action, and then releasing it and then replacing it with a better action. And I don't know. I believe love is the only way through. You
Mhm.
cannot, hate won't get you anything except a lot of frustration and hard times.
Yes, yes. And when I'm hearing you speak, especially with the conviction that you speak, that you could really be a rock for people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes people need to hear that they're valid from another person as well. And I feel like coaches really allow that for their coachees.
Hmm.
It's like, oh, they feel validated, like their process is okay when they said it out loud, and someone is like, wow, that's okay. I can see where you came from.
Yes.
It's kind of like it gives them a reassurance in their reality. So I feel like I like what we as coaches, what we do is we provide our clients a type of stabilizing factor. It's like by listening
Hmm.
and by seeing them. Like when someone feels seen, heard, and valued, they're able to feel more solid in their reality, like their reality matters. And when I don't know, there's no greater release than feeling like your reality matters
Yes.
when you've been feeling so long like your reality doesn't matter, that when you feel like it does matter, it feels like you can take on the world now. It's like, wow, now you're giving them a form of self-belief through that. It's like, oh, I believe more in myself because someone I admire, like Leon, believes in me. So then now I feel incentive to believe in myself.
Right. And the thing is, like when it comes to coaching, it's more than psychoeducation in a way that you're creating a process, you're facilitating a process that will allow for this to happen and allow people to unfold and to bloom and thrive.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
You're giving them permission to be their best self. So it's kind of like we can rub off certain traits off of people, so they can rub off confidence from your confidence in them. It's almost like when someone is confident in you, then you're able to be more confident in yourself. And I feel like we're able to give people vicarious courage in that way. Like as coaches, we're able to rub off courage on them by
Mhm.
seeing that like we believe in them so much, they're like, yeah. So it's almost like revitalizing. It's like soul resuscitation for some people. Yeah.
Yes. Mhm.
It can feel therapeutic, so it can
Mhm.
feel like a release.
Right.
What I believe is like I believe self-care is a form of release, and I believe coaching can be a big release for people, like a mental release. It's almost like they've had so many jumbled up chords in their brain, like when you have a pair of headphones and they're jumbled up, and that's someone's mind. And so what
Yes.
coaching does is it unravels those jumbled up chords of a phone and make it straight again. And so that's what coaching does. It almost like distangles all of the messiness in your mind. It
Mhm.
kind of brings you peace in that way.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I really do love that analogy. And when it comes to my groups, I do use a similar kind of analogy where it's like you have the thoughts and you have the emotions and behaviors and they're all tangled up like string. Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
And it can be painful in a low grade type of way. It's easy to ignore low grade suffering, but it
Mhm.
is so insidious. Like that type of tangled up mess in your brain over time will catch up to you in
Mhm.
small ways, and then it will build up into big ways.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So what are some ways that you help the client to be able to take steps to realizing more of who they are?
They'll say a statement and I'll stop them and I'll get them to reevaluate it. Because
Hmm.
I'm like, wow, that statement held way more weight than you thought it did. And so
Hmm.
I'll go like, what did that actually mean to you?
Hmm.
And they'll think about it a second time, but this time they'll pause more. And from that pause, you know that they're like, genuinely considering it.
Yes.
And then sometimes there comes the waterworks. Yeah.
Hmm.
It's almost like our brains are hardwired to skip over our own suffering. Like
Hmm.
it's almost like my client will say something totally like should be addressed. It's like, it's someone telling you like, "Oh, there's a third-degree burn on my leg. Anyways, how is the weather?" And I'm like, "Wait, didn't you talk about that third-degree burn on your leg?" And then they're like, "Wait, actually." And they look at it and then they're crying almost because it's like processing, wow, I didn't even know I was suffering that much until then. It's almost like people don't know how much they needed to feel understood until they
Yes.
felt understood for the first time.
Yeah.
So it's almost like the gift you never knew you needed. So
Right.
I like to be that sort of gift that people didn't know they needed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. There's that sense of in our lives that we feel like in order to move forward in a world that we separate from aspects of ourselves and we dissociate from it. But then we find that it's almost as if that we're walking in molasses in a way, that we're moving really slowly in life. And it's because there's that part is calling out to us to be understood. And the way forward is through.
absolutely. Yeah. A lot of people, they leave parts of themselves in the closet while they live their day-to-day lives. A lot of people use that for their sexuality, but that closet analogy can apply for anything. Any part of you that you want to leave inside the closet because you don't think it'll be accepted. And
Right.
so it's kind of like you betray yourself in order to fit in.
Right.
And it sucks because you can never your mind will never let you get away with separating parts of your personality from yourself. It'll
Mhm.
always catch up to you in the
Yeah.
form of like anything.
Yeah.
You're going to have a negative side effect until you can't ignore it anymore. It's basically every negative side effect, laziness, fatigue, or whatever it is. It's your body telling you to, hey, listen, like that, in Zelda, there's that little fairy, like telling you to always listen to it.
Mhm.
That's whenever you have a negative side effect in your body, it's to be a little grateful for it too, strangely, because it's trying to tell you to listen to
Yes.
yourself more because you haven't been. Unless it's a medical condition from a genetic thing. I'm not trying to blame any genetic thing on a spiritual thing. That's separate.
Right. Yeah. So the thing is, it's as if the body knows, right? The
Mhm.
body knows what's needed to heal in a way. And then, so as a coach, this is what you're identifying, like, what is the body telling the client?
Yeah, yeah. It's like,
Hmm.
what is everything telling the client,
Hmm.
basically? The common denominator in your life is you. So a lot of things, some of the byproducts in your life are a byproduct of some you interacting with something. So you are the node, which is interacting with other nodes. And what will happen is it'll cause a lot of, byproducts from that. And so you can retrace the end result of things back to why it happened. And for some things, it's a self cause, and those are within your circle of control, your circle of mastery. So if you can identify the things that you can really look into and put a like heal truly instead of healing partially, because a lot of us like we do half healing with ourselves, like we don't fully heal ourselves. We kind of like we don't go the full way. We don't let ourselves fully experience what we needed to experience. It's almost like we're a bundle of unmet needs over time.
Right.
So, yeah. So, because we are a bundle of unmet needs over time, our body is going to want us to meet certain needs that we've been neglecting, or our mind's going to want that too. Sometimes we'll try to find a cheap substitute for it too, sometimes.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
basically with overeating, sometimes it can be a byproduct of another thing.
Right.
You might be feeling stress, or you might be feeling some sort of thing, and the next best thing might be comfort in some form to ease that some sort of other sensation. So it's almost like we're always going to seek out things uh, to calm the low grade numbness or pain we might be experiencing, instead of tackling that pain head on, because it
Hmm.
can feel too big to tackle it yourself. Like
Right.
the elephant is too big, so to speak. So sometimes a coach is good to be there, because then they can listen to you talk, and through having another person talk with you through it, you realize it's not as big as you made it up to be in your head. And maybe with the support of another person, you are able to fight through it, battle
Yes.
on.
Yes. It's always wonderful to have that kind of support, and it's not something that is common to find.
Vulnerability can be very scary. It's
Hmm.
almost like you're giving your soft underbelly to someone,
Right.
and you really have to trust someone to be vulnerable.
Hmm.
Yeah. And sometimes it can be hard to trust people when you have a history of having people stab you in the back. So
Mm.
sometimes it can be hard to bring up the vulnerability needed to heal, because healing necessitates vulnerability. All
Right.
the best things in life require vulnerability, actually. Like true intimacy with another person requires
Right.
vulnerability. You know, actually being in your element, being in flow requires some sort of vulnerability too.
Right.
If you think back to it, like all the best things require vulnerability, but it also hurts the most when it goes wrong too.
Right.
Yeah, and because our brain wants to avoid pain, it forgoes the best thing in life too. A great coach is able to be a psychologically safe space for their client to open
Hmm.
up completely and fully. Yeah.
Yes. Hmm.
A lot of people can kind of feel like vulnerability is weakness, but the truth is, vulnerability is the biggest form of bravery and courage. It
Yeah.
takes so much bravery to be vulnerable, because it's kind of like, in spite of pain, I choose to be vulnerable. And so it's almost like an intentional choice to become vulnerable, even though the world can sometimes stab you with needles.